All right. This is Complete Man Podcast, episode number 22. And we're live in 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome back to the Complete Man Podcast with your host, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and I was speaking with you right before we went live about what today's episode content is going to be about, and this is something that I have found to be one of the most leverageable, impactful things once I figured out how to actually do this. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, cool. I think it's important for everybody to know how to be more efficient, more productive, more impactful, and more effective in the work that we do. This is one of the common things challenges I see in most people is that they're working longer hours and they're not getting as much done. So we're gonna talk about a core concept of how to get more work done in less time without burning out. It's actually one of our most popular workshops that I'm doing these days for organizations, for corporations, and their employees. I'm super excited about it. I love it because teaching someone how to have more time and part of that is actually having more energy and getting more work done. That not only helps them in their business, it helps them in their family life. Like that is the most important thing for me, that these people are able to get home at a decent time. They're able to spend time with their kids and their wife and not have to think about all the things that they haven't done at work still that keep them not present in the moment. So, um, this is near and dear to my heart. Passion. I'm very passionate about it. And first of all, I have to give a shout out to my mom and my dad, mainly my mom, because my mom is probably one of the most hardest working women that I've ever come across, and she is very effective and very efficient. And I don't know how she did it, but she worked, she ran a household, raised us as kids, cleaned, cooked, washed dishes, all that kind of stuff, right? And not just complained, but she had a system. That's what I give her credit for, is she had a system to do everything. And my wife laughs because she's like, your mom's kind of anal. She likes to do it her way. And I said, well, why don't you I get it. My mom is super anal, probably way too anal, but just watch what she does. Because on one hand, you're complaining about having enough time to do things. Just watch what she does. Maybe you'll pick up on a few things, because my mom is very systematic. She knows how to get things done. And that's kind of where I learned it, because if I wasn't efficient, she'd tell me. So I had to get all this stuff done. So shout out to my mom. Sometimes our moms are tough, but there's a reason behind it sometimes. So uh, a method to the madness, right? But it's important, again, because throughout my life, I've been able to do things and get things done a lot faster than people at my age group. And again, not that I was gifted or anything. It's just because I had a system. That's what it was. I just systemized things, and it just made things so much easier. Like, Nathan, why would we waste energy knowing that we're going to be doing the same thing over and over again and not be efficient and effective at it? Like, why not do it in half this time with half the effort, just by having a system? I just don't get why people don't want to do that. Well, I do get it, but I'm just, it's a rhetorical question. But that's what we're going to talk about here today.
So you mentioned, and this was off air, but you said that time blocking was one of the best, most leverageable things for getting this accomplished, for getting more done in less time and having more energy for other areas of your life. And for somebody just the word time blocking, you're like, oh, even if you've never heard of it, you're like, okay, I kind of get that. What exactly do you mean when you say time blocking?
Well, time blocking is actually taking parts of your day, your week, and blocking it out for specific tasks that allow you to make progress towards your goals. So those are the parameters around time blocking. Why is time blocking important? First of all, more than anything, the two most important resources that you have in life are time and energy. And those are your resources. They are not anybody else's resources. They are not your kids' resources. They are not your spouse's resources. They are not your manager or your employees' resources or your shareholders' resources. They are your resources. You own your time. and you get to choose what you want to do with your time and energy. If you choose to spend that with your kids, great. If you choose to spend it with your wife, great. If you choose that to work out, great. But you are the person who gets to choose that, not anybody else. So how you manage your calendar is the most important thing ever. Like, I have an executive assistant. I work with CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs who have executive assistants. And I always tell them, give your executive assistant the permission to book things in your calendar, but you own it. And they must have parameters, because if you allow someone else to own your calendar, you are a slave to other people. Mm-hmm. So own your calendar. That is the number one thing. So that's where time blocking comes in. I come across so many people where it's just like, oh, I got so many meetings, I got client meetings or whatever it is, they need to meet me at this time. And it's like, okay, where's the time for you to put in for the goals that you have? Not anybody else's goals, but your goals. Mm-hmm. Well, that comes at the end of the week, or sometimes I don't have enough energy or time to do that. And then guess what? You're not making progress towards your goals, and you wonder why you're stuck in the same position year after year. Mm-hmm. This is why. And there's another reason why time blocking is important. And we can talk about the mechanics of it after. Is now you can actually track, and I'm a big fan of bigger time blocks. And what I mean by that is, rather than doing something half an hour every single day, do block 2 hours. Or let's just say you're spending 1 hour every single day, Monday to Friday. I see a lot of salespeople do this, right? Every day I'm going to make sales calls from 11 to 12, whatever it might be, because I got to catch people at that time. I understand, but just take something from me here for a second. You spend 1 hour every day, Monday to Friday. That's 5 hours. Well, guess what? Within that hour that you're going to do something on Monday, the first half an hour, it takes you to get into the groove. It's what we call startup energy. Right? Your mind, it requires a certain amount of energy in your body to get accustomed to the task that you're doing, to actually get efficient at it. And that's similar to a train starting off, right? It catches momentum. And once it does, it burns a lot less diesel to go a particular mile, for example. Up front, it's burning a ton of diesel, right? Just to get going. And then it catches momentum. Same thing happens with you. That first half an hour, it goes to waste. So you are just spending 2.5 hours going to waste, probably at a 25 to 50% efficiency level. That remaining half hour every day is where you might be roughly at about a 75% efficiency level. But if you blocked out a 2-hour block, or let's just say a 5-hour block, let's just keep it equal, right? You're going to do 1 hour a day, Monday to Friday, or one day, 5 hours. Mm-hmm. You're more likely, based on our research, to be 4 to 5 times more effective. So that 5 hours can equal up to about 20 hours worth of work, 4 weeks worth of work. That's why it's so powerful. Mm-hmm. So one of the core concepts is take a look at things that you do throughout the week and try to condense them and chunk them into a bigger time block, so you keep that momentum going, and block things out. And you tell other people, don't disturb me, right? And when you spread things out, you're more likely to actually get disturbed as well. That's the other factor with this. But if you know that Monday I'm making sales calls from 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, and no one is to bug me, and you tell everybody, and you get your phone on silent, do whatever, you're going to get that much more done because you're not going to have any distractions. Mm-hmm. So that is just the core concept of time blocking.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned, I think that we really need to pay a little bit of attention to is, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, and you are in control of your own schedule, and you're in charge of a lot of moving parts. A lot of times things can come in and interrupt the flow of things. So you're working on something and your assistant calls you and says, hey, we have this issue, or somebody that you're paying to work with you comes in, a contractor comes in and says, hey, I need to worry about this. I need to divert your attention. And every time that happens, you were talking about the train and the energy that it takes to get it going versus the energy that it takes to keep it going. Well, every time somebody comes in and derails, or every time you haven't set up, I'm going to spend this time just doing this. Anytime something else comes in and derails, now you've got to take that momentum and start all over on the new thing. And then as soon as you're done with it, trying to get back on the original track, you have to start again from zero and get that momentum built up again. And I have definitely found in my life, if I block things into, okay, I've got these 3 things that I need to get done for 3 different projects, I can work on this one aspect of all 3 different projects at once and then move on to the next project or the next aspect and get all 3 of them done at once. Or I can do part 1 of project 1, part 2 of project 1, part 3 of project 1. But when I do it that way, I have to divert. I have to go, okay, I'm going from editing mode or from writing mode to editing mode to overall view mode. And every time I switch from one mode to the other, I have to stop and regain momentum. And so saying, you know what, right now I'm just in brain dump mode for all 3 projects. So I'm just going to brain dump, brain dump, brain dump. And then I'm going to go into organize. And then I'm going to go into edit. And that always works a lot better for me.
Yeah, and I think everybody has a different system that works good for them. So I appreciate what you just said there, because you have a system. That's ultimately what you did, right? You created a system that works for you. Here's the other thing to pay attention to is that everybody's minds are slightly different, if not very, very different. So what works for you may not work for somebody else. And our minds are anatomically, our brains are very similar, but at a macro level, but not at a micro level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every one of our neural connections are completely different for every single human being. That's what makes us so unique. And so our brains do function differently. Our brain, like you will think completely differently than I will, and you will be way better at things than I am. And so that's the other thing that I tell people too, is that we show them how to do is, so I love to work in the morning. My most proficient time is in the morning, and typically even on weekends, which is kind of strange, but that's what works well for me, because I have this comfort level that my kids are around, my family's around, and I just hammer things out before they're awake. Some people, that doesn't work for them. Some people and we talked about this in a previous episode, right? Night owls like yourself, where you're up late and working. So you have to understand your circadian rhythm, your ultradian rhythm is your rhythm throughout the day, and book and block time according to that. Now, one of the resistances that we get from people that we train on this is, well, I can't do that because clients call me, my employees call me, there's emergencies. And it's like, well, if you were in a mountain in Tibet, how would they get a hold of you? Like, what do you mean? Well, if you were in a mountain on Tibet with no cell service, how would they survive without you? Well, they'd figure it out. And so, well, exactly. And so going off the grid is a key aspect. You have to be able to go off the grid. And that's in your privy. You have responsibility to do that. If you're finding that you're continuously being interrupted by your executive assistant, you can tell your executive assistant, unless someone pulls the fire alarm, do not come into my office and don't bug me, right? I don't care what it is, or my kids or whatever that is. Same thing with your phone. You have a focus mode, for example, where you can have only your favorites come through, just in case it's a family emergency. Everybody else, right, gets stopped. There's a filter system. That's the other part of time blocking, is having the right filter system. And you can teach yourself this. Most people don't have a filter system for themselves. And it's not that easy. But whenever I do time blocking, I have these sticky notes. And I always put this friggin' sticky note in front of me right on the screen, just in case my mind starts to wander. I put that objective down. What is my objective in this next 2 hours? Bang, right? Because your mind will wander. That's just given. But now that I can see that sticky note, it pulls me back. And so being able to remind ourselves of why we're actually blocking that time is very important as well, because we forget that's how our minds are designed. And sometimes if you have a really good executive assistant, they are like guard dogs. They will make sure you don't get bothered. In fact, they will make you accountable and be like, why are you out of the office? You should be in your office doing this. This is what your time is blocked out for. So, it goes both ways. You may actually have a really good assistant that holds you to the task.
And I have noticed a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners have a little bit of like people pleaser syndrome to them, where the reason that they're so successful is because they'll bend over backwards to help their customers, to help their clients. But on the same, I guess, on the opposite end of this of the spectrum, having healthy boundaries, having the understanding that, hey, if I can work interrupted, I'm going to do a lot better of a job for the people that I'm trying to help. If I'm not constantly at the beck and call and dropping everything to put out fires for people, I can actually get the stuff done that they want me to get done. Having that respect for yourself, respect for your time, the ability to set those boundaries and realize that that's actually serving people better than just dropping everything every time somebody calls or every time something grabs your attention it's a way to frame the situation to where you can actually help yourself set those types of boundaries.
Yeah, really good point. Because that all comes down to parameters, and rarely do we come up with conscious parameters for ourselves. We really don't. But if you can actually outline those parameters for yourself, then you're more likely to actually fall within those parameters. It's really interesting when we take a look at this from a business perspective or a personal perspective. There's so much inefficiency out there because of this main reason, right? A lot of people just aren't taught how to be efficient. They don't teach that in school. They just don't. Even in the business world, a lot of people don't teach you how to be efficient. There's specific methodologies, two in particular: Six Sigma, which is more about correcting inaccuracies, right, and defects. And then there's Lean, which is based on the Toyota principles, which I became very proficient in and spent time in Japan in. And I learned so much. On average, any given business can have up to 85% of non-value added activities, meaning that uh, the work that you're doing is not about adding any value to the customers. Therefore, why should the customer be paying for it?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you take a look at it from that perspective, if you're not efficient as a business leader and your teams are not efficient as they should be, your customers are paying for that. They're paying for that inefficiency. And I don't think they would like that. So it's almost like you have a moral obligation to be as efficient as possible so that your clients and your customers are getting the most value from you, your employees, and your business. And if you take a look at things from that perspective, it changes things, because you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm not just doing, and your kids, think about it from that perspective, right? Don't you want to spend more time with your kids?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't complain. And I love this. When people complain about not having enough time, and then when you help them put a system together to have more time and they don't follow it, it's like, what do you want? Do you want more time, or do you just want to go through things randomly and complain about it? uh, because systems, this is such systems is so powerful. We had an entire episode on that, per palm. If you haven't listened to that episode of per palm, go back and listen to that, because that's all about systems. But if you learn how to do time blocking, how to build proper systems, you're going to be so efficient, and therefore you're going to be so much happier in life.
Mm-hmm.
But Nathan, I want to kind of close it with this. It is so important that you have your goals outlined. When you outline your goals for the year and your quarter and your week, or your month and your week, but more importantly, your day, you can actually time block more effectively. I see a lot of people time blocking and doing things that are not aligned with their goals. Don't do that.
Mm.
Or they're aligned with other people's goals. Don't do that. Your time blocking should align to your goals. That's why it's so important that you have your goals clearly outlined.
Yeah, and just the last thing that I want to mention, and this is something that I learned from you very early on, is when you do it this way, when you are spending time with your kids, or you're spending time with your spouse, or you're spending time with your client, and you say this time is for this person or this goal, then you get more out of that. So when you've clearly defined this time is for making sales calls and this time is for playing with my kids and taking them to the park, when you're with them at the park, you're with them at the park. You're not worrying about sales calls. You're not worrying about client X and problem B. You're there with your kids, and that makes that time so much more enjoyable, and the ability to be present in every moment of your day, and the ability to get the most out of every moment of your day. And it's such a simple shift, but it's so uncommon as well.
Brilliant message. And I want to just add 30 seconds to that, because that is the most profound thing right there in this entire episode. If you want to have a higher quality life, be more present, and be able to have a more fulfilling life, you do what Nathan is talking about. One of the reasons why people don't is because they have this feeling eating away at them that they weren't efficient throughout the day. If you go through your day and you know you're not efficient, you have this underlying, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. I know I was slacking off, or I was getting distracted. That is the worst feeling ever. That will keep you hooked on your work when you're spending time with your kids. Don't do that. Focus on what Nathan said. Be efficient so you can actually be fully present with your kids and fully present in your life and enjoy it.
All right, man. If people enjoyed this episode and they want to get more episodes like it, where is the best place to find the podcast?
Yeah, check out completemanpodcast.com or check out youtubeformen.com. That's our YouTube channel, which we're promoting more and more. We'd appreciate it if you can like and subscribe and share it with your friends and family members who you think would enjoy this. Here's the cool part. Based on our last stats, 38% of our listeners are women. This is awesome. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, well, you know what? It doesn't surprise me because women want a complete man too. So it's not that big of a surprise.
Pretty cool, huh?
All right, man. Until next time, we will catch you later.
Till next time.